Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a special meeting to catch up on all things Flying Horse Farms. My name is Samir Daman. I am the partner in charge of the Columbus office of Corman Jackson Krantz, and I'm also the vice chair of the board of the Flying Horse Farms. 2020 was an exceptional year in so many ways. It highlighted our need for connection, empathy, and resiliency. And this was especially true for our campers and their families, who experienced the anxiety of not only navigating a pandemic, but also navigating a serious illness. And so this is why connecting with camp continues to be as important as ever for camper families and camp friends like you. While we wish we could all be at the Big Red Barn together, this webinar is our commitment to bringing camp to you, just like we did our campers in 2020. I've had the absolute pleasure of volunteering at family camp before, and I can tell you that camp really does matter so much to the families. Of course, the kids, but also the parents. Oftentimes, camp is the only place they can go together to safely relax and have fun as a family, where they do feel understood and accepted. And as supporters of camp, it's you who make these opportunities for respite, joy, and healing possible. So on behalf of the board of directors, we thank you for all you have done to make camp possible, and invite you to see today how we maintained and created new camp connections, even throughout 2020, and our excitement for 2021. So without further ado, we'll check out the agenda. So Nicole's going to walk us through some headlines from last year, what's to come in this year, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. But if you do have any questions that come to mind during the webinar, feel free to use the Q&A function or the chat to plop those in during the webinar. You don't have to wait till the end. So take it away, Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks, Samir. I feel like I need to do like an Aussie. And now Samir already muted his video and it's, microphone. So I hear you coming through the screen. But I want to also just go through a bit of technology, that housekeeping stuff, but not without stopping and pausing with one of our core values is a simple thank you goes a long way. So in this era and time of all of our schedules being just Zoom stacked and Zoom roomed and all that good stuff of being in our virtual reality of a pandemic, thank you for taking the time to be with us live during this 45 minutes of time. Guests are muted on video, muted on sound, but please take advantage of the chat function, like Samir said. And if you have a question, please put that in the Q&A little box at the bottom. And then we've got our awesome Flying Horse Farms team capturing all those questions. They'll populate them and see if there's any similar questions to combine at the end when we've got questions. Both Samir and I are here throughout the next 40 minutes to respond to those at the end. But feel free to bring in some camp flair. I know we've got a few of you who have also volunteered at family camps like Samir has. We have a number of our friends on this call today that have also been donors, campfire event guests, and then we've got some seasonal staff alumni on here and volunteers that have experienced the full-fledged summer session. All are welcome. All of you are friends of camp. So we're coming to you from each of our homes this time. Last time we were at the Big Red Barn, but we thought we'd really reinforce the whole bringing camp closer to home. And in 2020, we did that in a million different ways and did it within 4 weeks of the shutdown last year, which we are quickly coming to the anniversary of. So my friend extraordinaire, Sarah Deege, is working the slides for me. And, you'll see some camper faces here shortly, but as our friends and donors of camp, we know that we'll drip in some numbers also. So how do you measure the effect of camp engagement when the gates are closed and we're not on site? But just some headlines and highlights by the numbers. In 2020, we served over 1,000 camper experiences, over 1,000. If we were on site, it would be, we pushed, I think 905 camper experiences in 2019. So by no means can we compare and contrast fruit and vegetable experience of on-site camp to virtual. But that's what we learned, is that by having a virtual experience made possible by our team, we were able to connect with campers who otherwise could not even come to camp. Right? Camp is possible for those kids who cannot otherwise spend a night away from home except the hospital room, or go to birthday parties, or experience a traditional camp setting. And in a pandemic, we said we still need to create camp, and we were able to reach the kiddos who could not even come to camp if it were open. And you'll see later that we're not going to give up on that. The other thing that we made a dedicated commitment to was creating opportunities to keep volunteers engaged. So with 265 volunteers giving their time, figuring out how to show up for camp in the way that works safely for them, we said, we're here for you, you're here for us, let's show up for our campers. We looked at what were the traditional sacred moments of camp and how can we recreate those beyond a YouTube or social media video interaction. And one of the things that we know matters most for the mental health, well-being, and sense of belonging that happens at camp are the cabin chats. Those quiet moments that by the third night, the counselors, the seasonal staff, the volunteers are no longer in the circle, where the campers own that time. They own that circle, the vault of cabin chat time. So we had over 255 cabin chat participants. And I'm going to share a little bit more about the ampersand part of that. We made it possible for campers. We also added caregiver and parent cabin chats, which was something new and an unexpected gap of services that we realized wasn't happening for our parents and caregivers, that said, you know what? That's what camp is here for. We're here for the parents and caregivers too. So, but also family camp, virtual family camp happened. It was a riot to take over and show up in our camper families' houses and to do a scavenger hunt. It was unleash, unlock, go find these 20 different things. It might be go find a chair. And they were moving furniture. They were running outside. They were bringing rocks and sticks and leaves and a microwave plate, and everything was showing up in the camera. It was a blast to see them bring camp into their home. And if we all remember what the hole in the wall sign says, is that it's the only place in the world, whether you're coming or going, you're always home. And one of the most endearing phrases that the camp team ever hears is that we do camp at home. And it's like, well, what do? You sing songs, you sing, the dining hall song, and you pound on the table. But we literally brought camp to home this year. So Camp in a Box, that was our first opportunity to deploy 458 Camp in a Box kits through the U.S. Postal Service, through hand deliveries across state lines. Our team figured out how to very quickly do it safely, to show up in real life and say, yes, you see us on the screen, we're still here in person. And it was a way for us to start to learn how to physically distance, wear a mask, understand what the risks are in approaching our campers safely. It was a great surprise to hear that camp could all fit in a box, because camp is magical. That's how that works. You can read all the rest. I want to underscore the 73 calls to the Purple People Power Line. That was another pivot and move into creating something that, if you've been to camp during a camp session, Purple People wear the purple lanyards. They are our child life specialists and our mental health frontline during a camp session. And so we made sure that, short of calling it a crisis hotline, it really was a power line, creating access to camp as needed at a scheduled time that was dedicated for one-on-one conversation that was recorded and safe, to say, we're here. We want to make sure that we're meeting the mental health needs of our campers, in addition to the fun, the entertainment, the sense of connection. We are here to provide that holistic healing. And we really stepped into saying, this is how we can continue to dedicate time to this. We have campfire events, weekends of family camp, and of course, a million bloopers, because when you're doing it on video, a lot of things are recorded and there's a lot of behind the scenes, which is great to see that we can do a million blooper reel at some point in the future. So next slide. As I get into this and the chats start populating, I think I forgot to mention that we are recording this. So the chats aren't recorded, but we are also going to share this link out. If you want to share it, pass it on to a friend. It's one of the things that at the end of this, you're going to say, well, what more can I do? Oh, I wish I could have shared this with, because, you know, we can't get enough of TV time. So why not watch camp on video? But this is being recorded, but continue to use the chat function. Those don't show up in the video, so you're all good there. But this screenshot, we've all seen the squares, the Brady Bunch squares and all that good stuff. And what this really represents is the fact that it was a year that so much was taken away, and yet so much was created, and the Zoom room space allowed for really saying, like, how do you keep traditions alive? A tradition is something that happens regardless of who's there, what time of year it is, and what you're seeing is hand signals. We did the call and response. I started off with Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. You can still say oi, oi, oi through a screen. There were times where there were challenges, or when somebody says that secret word, all of a sudden there's a response in a song. We learned how to do dances. This image is from our first virtual campfire event. So sure, you see staff, you see volunteers, you see campers, you see camper families, you see board members, but you also see donors. It is one of the first events that we were able to do where camp traditions blended all of our camp community family members. So this was just a great way to represent, and we hope that you take advantage of, just like today, having lunch with us. You too can join into any of our campfires, which are typically on a Friday night. And then volunteer applications are opening soon. You can click onto the website and still volunteer for some dates that are coming up. And that's a nice preview for something that's coming in about 5 minutes. But that was all of our programming that we were able to do. We're continuing to roll through the winter and do virtual program engagement and fireside chats. But at the end of summer, rolling into fall with Campfire, the next thing that we did, I think it was at our last webinar together, I shared that we were going to be doing drive-in events. So one more step into how can we have an extended period of time beyond the camp in a box delivery pop-up events. How can we continue to have an extended time together with COVID safety protocols and yet bring that spirit of camp to where the campers are? So in Columbus and Cleveland, we had our drive-in event. We had lights, camera, action, and in true camp form, it was, if you've ever been to a family camp, honk your horn. If you've ever been to Heart Camp, you know, shine your brights. If you've ever been to Siblings Camp, wave your light wand. So our camp team just says, you know what, this is what camp is. It's not on site. It doesn't have to always be, you know, at a cabin porch. That's ideal. That's what we want it to be. But we know that the tradition of camp and what it stands for, we will create it in the environment that we're given, because that's what we believe in at Flying Horse Farms. We say, yes, we will figure it out, and we make it possible. So that's what we did in the fall. And then moving on to snowflake season and freezing temps, we literally kept rolling right into how can we continue to keep the campfire magic alive and strong, even when the temperatures started to change. We opened our gates to over 2,000 guests. So in addition to having over 1,000 camper experiences, we hit a record of having new friends, guests, camper families. Perhaps some of you on this call also came through our gates before we shut down 2020 and called it a year and launched our first light up camp experience. Everybody was able to drive through camp. We had a lot of our Mount Gilead neighbors who were curious, had never been to camp, and it all ended with driving through the hole in the wall, because how cool is that to drive your car through the hole in the wall, all lit up with lights, and you had a lot of our friends dancing, welcoming, horns honking. It was the most heartwarming experience to be there on the first night, which was the night after Thanksgiving. We opened up and the windows were down on a car. I happened to be there that night, and it was across from where the Color Olympics field is, right? So right in front of the dining hall. The cars would come around the backside of the cabin, down the center path, but you hear the music going, the lights are dancing, and you could hear kids laughing. Oh my gosh, how did they do it? The second song started, it's going again. And it was an instant reminder that that is what camp is for. That is what we are here to do, is to make just the dazzling experience of wonder through a kid's eye happen at camp. So it was a great way to put wind in our sails and actually have the gates open at camp before we said, what's up on deck for 2021. Sarah, will you go to the next slide, please? I keep wanting to get to 2021, but because this is our donor webinar, I also want to take a minute to just pause, share with you the excitement, the emotion that we have of gratitude for last year, our commitment to our mission for 2021. But we also know, I know that if we were actually sitting down for lunch, you would look across the table at me and say, so how did y'all do? Financially, how is Flying Horse Farms doing? Lots of nonprofits had a variety of different experiences. Did you take advantage of government funding? Could it be possible? And so I just want to stop and pause and say thank you, because many of you continue to be our stalwart supporters. We made some decisions early on with the support, oversight, and counsel of our board members. By April of last year, we looked at what's the impact of a pandemic? We've never lived through this. How do we do this? We looked back at the 08 recession. We checked in with a lot of our donors, and we just said, you know what? Let's anticipate a 45% reduction in income. What do we need to do? And how do we make sure that we prioritize camper engagement with our mission? And number two, increase our stakeholder communication. So hopefully if you are on this call, you had a touch point either from me, a team member, a board member, a camp ambassador, either a phone call, a postcard, a mailing, a webinar invite. Every month, hopefully you had a little dose of camp to know we're not going anywhere and we appreciate you and we hope that you're doing well. And then the next thing that we did prioritize was focusing on the care and use of the camp property. Because even if camp's not happening, the greatest place of safety is making sure the physical care and well-being of the camp property is there. And back in September, October, during our last time together, I'd shared that one of the ways we were able to ensure that is by providing housing for quarantine of first responders. And so that's was the backdrop to making sure that we could reduce our income and understand, adjust our expenses. And by doing all those things with that prioritized commitment, we ended up wrapping up the year with an overwhelming support from foundations and individual donors like you. Some who they always make a gift with stock, the stock value doubled, they still maintain that value of stock, but their gift doubled. That was so powerful and unexpected for us. We had individuals who made a gift in the summer and we thought that's awesome. That's probably, all that we can expect this year. And they still made an end of year gift. We had support from the Abercrombie and Fitch Challenge where donors were saying, how can I match my gift? And we said, we have a great partnership with Abercrombie and Fitch. Make your gift online here because they're not having their event, but that will benefit camp. So it was a fantastic opportunity to share how we're maintaining all of our Friends of Camp support while telling the story of what your gift will do. In that effort, the other surprise gift back to camp was we re-engaged donors that had not given in 2 or more years. You're about to hear that and have probably heard that camp's about to celebrate 10 years of on-site camp experiences. So it would make sense that we have some donors that have lapsed in giving, they're giving other ways, or because of the pandemic, they said, I need to come back to you. I believe in what camp is doing so much that it is needed now more than ever to ensure the mental health care, well-being, joy, and healing of families that live with a child with serious illness. I'm back. I'm here for you. And yes, we did receive local government funding, as well as applied for the PPP loan, which was approved and forgiven. And so we are able to start this year also with the continued entrepreneurial spirit of saying, we're dedicated to the mission. We will open our gates because of it. And we had such great experiences of Light Up Camp and offering camp for rental for corporations, family holiday gatherings, that will continue to make sure that people can be on site, on property, using the property of camp when camp's not in session, all for the sake of gaining resources to support the mission. So it was a powerful year for Flying Horse Farms, and our campfire stayed lit and it's burning bright. As we go into 2021, we know that we can stop, pause, and say, what did we learn? What did we learn? And what I would refer to as that Venn diagram. We know camp to be one way. What did we have to do in 2020? And yet, what other new things can we take away, either as reminders, affirmations, or we always wanted to, or wow, I had no idea that was a need. We can't let up now. First and foremost, core value number 6, with trust comes relief. We recognized and heard loud and clear that our camper families deeply trust Flying Horse Farms, perhaps to a place where we have to be reminded that we don't take that lightly, and we're not going to risk the safety of our camper families, because we do make magic happen, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. So we're being incredibly even more amplified in our intentionality, working with our medical advisory board on a monthly basis, if not phone calls every day, on what about this? What about this policy? What about this practice? We want to honor the gift of that trust of our families. We talked about year-round engagement. We're going to maintain virtual engagement. And with caregivers, I referenced it earlier, our parents and caregivers, we created a cabin chat forum for them. Within the second, third phone call, the question was asked, do you have another place where you go to talk with other family members, other parents that have a child with serious illness? This was right around back to school time. And the conversation went to a place of just saying, like, how do I reconcile the mental health and well-being of hopefully sending my child back to school over the medical care and safety of my child? I mean, that's huge. It's huge in a regular year. You throw a pandemic on top of that, and the camp families need to connect with each other, and that means the caregivers too. So we are continuing to do that. This last month, we had a camp friend pharmacist as our expert guest come and talk about the effects or questions around the vaccine and how that may or may not affect various diagnoses. Next month, we'll have one of our camp friends, Dr. Schreiber, coming in talking about mental health and the effect of mental health compounding with a serious illness in a child. We know that our rangers and our adolescent young adult audience appear to be more acutely affected by this pandemic isolation. We never want to get into a judgment or a weight of who's affected more or less, but what we were hearing around that teenage year, that 18, 19-year-old who's like, where do I go? Where is my sense of belonging? Who is my community right now? We really want to lean into them. And often these were the individuals, the campers, who likely had their last year of camp experience taken away from them. They looked forward to 2020 being their last hurrah of come to camp as a camper, and it wasn't possible until our team said, it's possible. It's going to look different. Let's make it, we're going to bring it to you through the screen. And then we always know, you all have been to camp, you know how beautiful it is, you know what it feels like. Even when you're not even a camper family, you know what it's like as a donor, a seasonal staff member, a volunteer. It's an amazing property. It's a magical hub in the middle of Mount Gilead, and we want to make it available to others. And so we're doing that, and we're committed to it, and people came. So that's the lessons that we're taking forward. And where are we going? Where are we going to? Sure, we're doing virtual. We've got events going on, but we are going to open the gates of camp. It's not a rumor. It's not a myth. It's not something mystical. We really are opening the gates at Flying Horse Farms for camp in 2021. The team was prepared back in December to say, I think it's possible. I think we could do a mini version of full session summer camps, kind of like we've known them to be, but they would not be the same. And we said, what do our camper families need most right now? And the answer was in the question. The camper family needs camp the most right now. So we decided to really dedicate our time to focusing on healing the family. That's parents, siblings, the camper themselves. We will open our gates this spring and then into summer with 9 camps. They will be multi-diagnosis, which is the similar format of family camps in the weekend in the past. And we will open activity areas. So that includes the swimming pool, that includes low ropes, that includes, a lot of things that's like, could we do it? Will it be possible? So this is where the team is spending a lot of time right now, is making sure that What are all the layers of liability, logistics, safety, protocols, certifications, insurance for some of our activity areas? What are the certifications of staff that we need to make sure are in place because we didn't function last year? So we need to reboot as we would every winter and spring during camp prep season. But this year, even more so, it's like, what is this extra layer? So we've got a phenomenal team that's in place, and we'll be, seeking volunteers for Saturdays it'll be a 1-day volunteer experience. The link, like I said earlier, is available on the website if you want to go there. We'd love to see you, and you're always welcome back. And that 9 family camps in spring and summer does not include the yet to be rolled out additional camps that will be planned for the fall. So we've got a packed spring, summer, fall of camp on deck. When we return, we're just going to do everything that Dr. Fauci tells us to do and how to be safe humans as we navigate this world. So we will be doing testing. What you don't see on here is the requirement of vaccinations. It's, we'll do what we can. We'll seek them out. But what we can do is make sure that we have all the non-pharmaceutical interventions in place, the mask wearing, physical distancing, making sure all of our volunteers and staff understand the protocols, additional training. But the testing is something that we're able to do because we do have a lab on site. We do have certified staff that can make testing possible in the moment on site. So that's the other piece that we are working to place high attention to, is what is the highest efficacy test that makes the most sense for us to be able to invite families onto camp and go through the hole in the wall for their weekend of respite and healing. So this might be where you might have like, but what about this and what about that? And so please throw those questions in the Q&A, and we'll do the best to answer them, but just know that that's all rolling out, and we are working with our medical advisory board frequently, consistently. They're highly involved in a new way, in a more acute way in the screening process, but also ensuring and approving like, hey, this diagnosis, yes, this diagnosis, no, but maybe. We're being much more intentional in a very detailed fashion on making sure we return to camp safely. Next slide, Sarah, is virtual camps. We can't talk enough about virtual, right? And yet enough's enough. You know that we're going to do it. We're going to keep the drumbeat going. We never want there to be a camper that says, I miss camp on site. Yes, but we're going to make camp accessible. We're going to continue to be year round. We'll do the camp at home box deliveries, pop-up events. That ranger group is going to have a dedicated 7-month program. The adolescent and young adult program will continue in the fall, and our caregiver fireside chat program is something we're really looking forward to leaning into and understanding what role can camp play in partnership with hospitals, schools, but ultimately meeting the needs of our caregivers and parents. This is something that we're proud of, excited about, proceeding with immense enthusiasm, is understanding that, yeah, we want to make camp available to our campers, camper families, be accessible on our calendar. There's 365 days a year that camp can be used. It's not used for camp all of those days, so let's rent it out. But somewhere in the middle, we also know that there's a place for partnerships. And we're calling this the expanded mission opportunity. This is working with organizations who serve diagnoses that may or may not be part of our regular typical summer session diagnoses week. But these are organizations that have a behavioral mental health service component that serve youth or at-risk youth organizations. If ever there was a time that we can say, we have this amazing, healing, joyful place available, we now know too well, sadly, what the need is for our kids with mental health and the effects of this pandemic and isolation. So our team is working to, one, reach out, but also organically recognize that we have great partnerships. We have great partnerships with our hospitals that may want to come, rather than having their 1-day workshop, conference, family learning day in a hospital setting, come to camp, sit in the rocking chair, go for a walk, be by the waterfront. And that's where you can still accomplish what your outcomes are for the program of what their mission is. We can just provide a really great setting for it. So stay tuned for more about that. What else we're doing in 2021 is celebrating. We're going to celebrate the heck out of 2020 is in our rearview mirror. There's much that we accomplished. We're thrilled that we can be back, but mostly it's because we've got a banner decade to celebrate of 10 years of magic. And you too can be part of this. As soon as April, May, June, there's going to be a 10-stop back to camp campaign, and it will be across the state of Ohio. There'll be 10 locations where you can support either through Moo Car Wash. There is some local purveyors of food and beverage that will be announced, or local nurseries when you get your plants for the spring. But that will all roll out very soon. So watch for that. And, you can imagine that you have like your own camp passport and participate in those 10 stops. It will have a social media component. We will connect stories of campers to each of those locations and that experience, and then you can reshare it. So stay tuned for our 10-stop back to camp campaign, April 24th. If you are just itching to get back to camp, Spring into Camp open house, April 24th, please put that on your calendar. We would love to stand at the gate and greet you. And if you've been at camp on an arrival day, you know that I love being a traffic controller, because selfishly, it means that I get to wave to each and every one of you as you come down the road through the hole in the wall. So please come and spring back into camp with us on April 24th. We're going to celebrate in only camp fashion with many Orders of the Horse's birthday celebrations. We'll make sure that we have camper alumni catch-ups and reunion calls. And right, because who else doesn't need a glow up except after 10 years, let's take a look at that website. It has been put together with all the glorious duct tape, scotch tape that camp can provide in technology fashion. So our website's going to get a reboot. It will be interactive. It will have dynamic components to it. So as we all live in this virtual world, stay tuned for early summer launch of our new interactive camp website. And of course, sprinkles of camp confetti throughout the entire year, all leading up to the 10th month of our 10th year to bring Campfire, our annual event, to one location, which will be camp. So Campfire is coming home to camp on October 1st. So save the date for that. So we'll see you in April, and then we'll see you in October, and hopefully you'll come and volunteer and be at camp in the summer for a family camp. But save the date for Friday evening, October 1st. More information to come, obviously, but you'll see that it also says 1-2. That's on purpose. You too can spend a night at camp if you so choose. As a way of supporting camp through the Campfire event, there'll be donation and sponsorship levels where you can spend a night at camp with your family, your friends, whoever safely qualifies under whatever regulations that we're told to follow for our rules. But that is where we put ourselves at a wrap. You've heard the headlines of 2020, where we're going in 2021, and it looks like we've got a few questions. And so Samir, you're welcome to come off microphone as well. That's a lot in my voice.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of hallelujahs, camp's coming back, which is great to see. We've got a big shout out, hello from the Jordan family. So hi, Jordan family, coming at us from Indianapolis area. It's great to see you. We got a couple questions. What's going to be the role of the volunteer on Saturdays? And if you're COVID testing on site, are you requiring quarantines prior? Fantastic questions. And we're going to work with our hospital partners to make sure that we do this and make sure all of our regulations are with our medical advisory board. But I'm actually going to go in like reverse order of that question. Quarantining ahead of time, it will be asked. It will be required to the best of our ability. We can't force people to come, go, do what they do in their lives, but it will be expected prior. We will also have that part of our conversation for leaving camp. We want to make sure that because everybody did everything right prior to camp, at camp, you will be in a group, you will be physically distancing. We can't prevent everything. We can't mitigate all risk. So we will also encourage and recommend that there is a post-quarantine time just to ensure that as you leave and go back out. So we will finalize what that quarantine timeframe is. We will finalize what that process is if you choose to come to camp, because we want to make sure that our families understand the safety measures and trust what we are putting out there is followed by the individuals that are showing up to make camp happen. So that's the quarantine question. testing on site. We know that not everything is 100% proof. So that's what we're really spending February, March, April. What can we can't guarantee anything, but what's the greatest mitigation of risk procedures and protocols that we can put in place? But we'll do a final sign off with our medical advisory board in March, April. Yep, green light, go. This feels with confidence, caution, but confidence that we can proceed. And then the Saturdays. So there's going to be a variety of volunteer roles based on what your skills are. There might be the delivering of meals out to the cabins. So rather than being on the K crew in the dining hall, the meals will likely be at the cabins. It will be one family per cabin versus two, which has been the typical family camp weekend. And there'll be a dining table in the cabin. So we'll take out the bunk beds and put a dining table in. But how cozy could that be, right? Having lunch on the front porch at that picnic table this summer. So that might be a role. We'll look at skill set. We'll look at what all those logistical needs. So it might feel a little bit more logistics volunteering versus there won't be sidekicks. Unfortunately, that's when, a fan favorite and a family favorite, but we won't be able to have that close proximity, but we'll come up with something else. We will apply everything we did with our drive-ins and light up camp, like what can still honor the camp tradition and have volunteers engage with families and families feel supported and relaxed when they come. So that's Saturday volunteering. Trying to catch up. Yeah, Samir, feel free to chime in if there was any headlines that you remember from the board meeting.
I'm just really excited about, camp coming back. And I think that the family camp concept it makes so much sense to get as much of the holistic healing involved and happening as possible. So, no, I really appreciate all the updates on everything. Do you want to keep going with quick Q&As?
Yep, I got a couple of Q&As and some
Okay.
headlines because if you all are able to see the chat, that's what I'm not sure if you can see or if it's just to me. Looks like it's just to the panelists, but I was given the reminder that there is a volunteer webinar tonight. So if you are curious about more information on specifically volunteering, we can make sure that you get that link. Just put that in the chat or the Q&A and say, hey, send me the link for the volunteer webinar. That's tonight. So more questions on that with the expert skilled staff that can answer those questions. And then also a shout out to our Young Professional Council. So they are a group of young, awesome professionals, of course, it's in their name, but they are part of, members of our all crew. They've been raising money for camp. They've been staying connected to the camp community, and they're just jazzed and pumped and hyped and all those exclamation points and capitals that Taz and members of YPC are sharing. So you've got a great crew of people to lean into if you're curious to volunteer. And there was a question about, will we need more medical providers to help volunteer for the family camps this summer? The answer is yes. So yes, we want and request and desire more medical providers. And I say more in comparison to what's typically required for a family camp. We always need to have the physician, the nurse, there's meds, there's any needs that pop up. We have families that drive 45 minutes and families that drive 6 hours and 45 minutes to come to camp. So they're not close to their own hospital or physician. So yes, we are always looking to build out our friendships with our medical volunteers and healthcare providers. So please, 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 if you are interested or know or want to share the camp volunteer information with the individuals that you work with at your children's hospital, please pass that on. We can also put you in touch with Christy McKinley, who's leading our wellness and medical team. Let's see, other great questions going on here. Cannot wait. Thank you. Shout out to Akron Children's Hospital for being online. We appreciate you so much. Are providers from Indiana permitted to practice in this way? I don't want to go on record for answering that question, but my understanding is yes, because of some work that we've done in the past that we have reciprocity with some of our states, our neighboring states, but let's bring that question back to Christy McKinley and our medical advisory board to ensure that that's the right answer. Request for the webinar link. And so much information makes me even more excited to be part of camp. Thanks for that message, and we appreciate you too. Hey, another thought for the use of the property, burnout recovery camp sessions for nurse and frontline workers. You're speaking my language. This is something that's been on our radar for 2 years. That is part of our commitment and our vision in saying that camp, our 10-year target, our vision statement will become to be the first prescription in holistic healing for children with serious illnesses and their families. But that first part, to be the first prescription for holistic healing, we know that that can apply to frontline healthcare providers, that can apply to family members, that can apply to any community member, that can apply to a corporate culture. Come use camp for just getting away from the Zoom atmosphere. Come get away with your team, healthcare or otherwise. If you have a conference or a group or a network or an association of professionals, particularly around the healthcare providers, reach out to us. Let us work with you. Do you want to come to camp for a day? We have the ability to also space out that you come on an evening and then stay overnight for the next day. So thank you for that thought, that suggestion. That affirms that we are in the right lane to make ourselves available for such efforts. While I lean in, you can tell that I don't have my glasses on. Oh, so many questions. Great idea. Also for teachers. Yes, teachers, everybody. Oh, I love this. This is so great. I think we're creating our ad hoc committee of people who are like, I know what we can do. This is great. So I think, am I missing any others? I'm looking to the team. Are we good, Rachel, on questions? Look at you guys go. You got links going on in here. This is affirming for us. What's the time for the webinar this evening? 5:30 to 6:30. We'll make sure the link goes out. We appreciate you. We miss you. We love our camp community, and we so appreciate, we have so many care packages that were, you work for a camp when a box is just duct taped up and there's markers and there's like streamers and all sorts of fun goodies inside a box. But yeah, Samir, you want to bring us around and bring us home with any final thoughts? Oh, you're on mute. I love your animation and your friendly face.
Yes, yeah. It's like being a mime. But yeah, thank you again for sharing all these, really, I think, positive updates. Like I've said before, I am just thrilled that family camp is going to happen this year. And, I think what we've learned from the past year is that campers and caregivers need camp all year long, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not. And the work, that I've seen the team do to make camp possible throughout last year, it's really nothing short of remarkable. 1,200 experiences that's like 4 a day or something. And so it's really exciting to see that there's going to be, we're going to celebrate the 10-year anniversary this year. But oftentimes after these conversations, folks ask me or others that I know, what can they do to help? And so as a board member, it's my responsibility to underscore that we are so grateful for even folks asking that question, and for, continued support, financial and otherwise. So just real quick, a couple easy ways to support camp are to tell a friend about camp. You could participate in a third-party fundraiser, like the upcoming Journey Back to Camp. And of course, you could just make a gift to camp. So that's just real quick thoughts to wrap things up. But thank you all again, and thank you too, Nicole.
Awesome. Samir, we appreciate you, your leadership, the board's active, increased engagement on top of your own doings, your own homes, your own businesses, the way that our board members and donors and all of you that are friends of camp showed up. For us, it carried us through on so many days and moments. We have joy and connection and mission moments as a way to start off many of our meetings, both as a board, but also staff, and we do Monday huddles. And so please know that just as I could quickly read some of your personal shout outs, I do that one to let you know, like, we see you. We read every note that comes through. We read every, we share pictures as they come out. So while we couldn't, make everybody live today for this, just know that your messages and your love notes to camp, as much as we're hopefully sending them back to you, they mean so much to us and our team. And we look forward to being together very soon around a campfire, hopefully April 24th, and for sure on October 1st. So with that, we say thank you and a great round of applause for Samir, our vice chair of the board, and happy camping. Thanks, friends.